wall. Although it was for him the scene of bitter defeat, Jules Lacoura could not hold his own failure against a city that, unlike Paris, but like life, was beautiful both in spite of itself and as the sum of its ungainly parts. Manhattan was a gift not of form, but of light and motion. From a distance or on high, the persistent sound that rose from it, a barely audible hum that never ceased, might have been the whispered stories of all its inhabitants, even the dead. He couldn't dislike New York, no matter the petty injuries and humiliations he had suffered there, because, as a foreigner, he could neither fully understand it, nor fight the way it fought, nor speak the way it spoke. Nor could they speak the way he spoke. They didn't even say his name correctly, pronouncing Jules indistinguishably from the English word Jules. He never quite got used to this, as in French the S was silent and the J pronounced J. They did almost all right with Lacour, coming close to the second syllables, cour, and not quite making it, but Jules drove him crazy, as if every time someone addressed him they called him Bijou. Not that Jules's English was that precise. He had a strong French accent, but no one in America seemed to know how to pronounce any foreign word. And apparently no one had ever heard of anything either, and Jules Lacour was so constantly explaining references and allusions that eventually he gave up. De Gaulle? Churchill? Renoir? Winslow Homer? Cavafy? Not a chance. Set, invisibly when it was off, in the bathroom mirror, a hotel television nearly scared him to death when he accidentally turned it on and saw Mick Jagger staring back at him. On the same machine he witnessed interviews with American beach-goers who thought that in 1776 America had won its independence from California, that the moon was bigger than the sun, that you could take a Greyhound bus to North Korea, that Alaska was an island south of Hawaii, and that the Supreme Court was a motel in Santa Monica. How could the United States have become so rich, powerful, and inventive? Or rather, how long could it remain so? Raising the RPM of its enormous engines, the pilots smoothly and slowly moved the Airbus forward. Ailerons and flaps were exercised at a stately pace as spoilers popped up like prairie dogs and then retreated. The deep harmonies and a slight treble weaving amid and yet overwhelmed by the bass said that despite the immense power already evident, the turbines were still at rest, with the counterpoint of bass suggesting that they were yearning to come up full. Music, even of this kind, was everywhere the bearer of messages from an unreachable but always beckoning place out of which perfection spilled easily and without limit. In his deepest despair, when his wife died, when his only grandchild was diagnosed with leukemia, the reason he had come to America, Jules Lacour might still hear music arising from unexpected quarters, from the rhythms of steel wheels on train tracks, though this was now rare in France after the joints in the rails had been bridged by welds, from the clickings of elevators moving in their shafts, the unpredictable harmonies of traffic, wind in the trees, the workings of machines, and water flowing, falling, or surging in waves. Even in desperation, music would sound as if from nothing and wake him to life. He was a cellist, and could never have been anything else. The world had courage, faith, beauty, and love, and it had music, which, although not merely an abstraction, was equal to the greatest abstractions and principles, its power to lift, clarify, and carry the soul forever unmatched. After a steady roll, the plane reached the end of the runway and stopped before final check and permission to take off. The stewards and stewardesses, who, as if they had no sex, were now called flight attendants, had taken their seats facing backward and at their charges, whom they surveyed unobtrusively. The plane almost pivoted, the tip of the port wing tracing an enormous arc as the tip to starboard backed up as carefully as an intimidated animal. The engines were pushed to full, just as he had as a young soldier in a troop transport rising on a course for Africa. As the plane sped down the runway and lifted off, Jules forgot his troubles. The war in Algeria had ended so long before that, when asked about it, he would simply say, "That part of my life is now a museum."